What up, Tyler?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. Before we get into this podcast, we got a marketing and lead generation live webinar. If you're listening to this podcast, when it comes out, there is a link in the bio to register for it. It is December 17th, 2024, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is a free webinar, and we're going to talk about marketing and lead generation and how it pertains to our businesses and what we've learned. And some of this stuff, as you're going to hear in this podcast in a minute, is stuff that I am learning at hyper speed because of a very unfortunate event. So, this is intended to be not only a webinar, but a Q&A. It's the best place that you can hop on live and ask questions with us. We're going to be doing this on a monthly basis. So if you're interested in chatting with us and talking about sales and marketing, or maybe something else, feel free to register. Link is in the bio. The only way you get the invite is if you register.
Yeah, you can also hop on Modern Craftsman Pod on Instagram and hit the highlight that says webinars, and there's a registration link there if that's easier for you.
Tyler coming in with the making it easy.
Mm.
Well, today we are going to talk about marketing and lead generation, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about, why I'm learning it or implementing it at hyper speed, due to a couple projects that didn't go as planned. We'll just say that.
Strap in.
This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. Experience the next level of energy efficiency with Andersen 400 series windows with triple pane glass. This new option is now available in the Northeast and is designed to meet stringent stretch code standards and Energy Star version 7.0 performance requirements. The triple pane option also aligns with Passive House and Net Zero performance goals. Andersen 400 series windows with triple pane glass boast various coating options for the optimal installation.
Customers can choose from options like dual low E4 enhanced or low E4 enhanced with heat lock technology, enabling the best fit for their climate and energy needs. Crafted from wood with a PermaShield exterior cladding, Exterior's 400 series windows combine timeless aesthetics with weather-resistant construction, making them ideal for harsh climates. Additionally, the triple pane glass option helps homeowners reduce their energy bills. For more information, head to andersenwindows.com/moderncraftsman. I think that's the window we're probably going to be using on our house, to be honest.
No way. I am also ordering those windows for my house. We are finally in renovation mode on our place, so we're going to be replacing our old double hung with some triple pane.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we've been digging into that some. We still don't have everything sorted out and selected, but I think that that's going to be our go-to. Honestly, that 400 series window for the price is very tough to beat, and now with the triple pane option, it's like
super smart move on their part.
There's not much else that's going to be able to compete with that, so I'm pretty pumped.
This podcast is also brought to you by Buildertrend. If you're an established contractor, you know the struggle of juggling multiple projects, teams, and subcontractors, and how it can lead to major inefficiencies if things aren't well coordinated. Well, that's where Buildertrend steps in.
Buildertrend centralizes all aspects of your project in one platform, so you can easily manage multiple and complex workflows in real time. From scheduling to communication to budget tracking, it's all there right at your fingertips. Ready to bring order to the chaos? Head to buildertrend.com/mcdemo and schedule a free demo today to learn how Buildertrend can transform your business.
This podcast is also brought to you by Velux. Have you ever wished that you could put just one more window in a living room, or wondered how to add more natural light to a space like a bathroom or maybe a closet? With Velux skylights, you can enhance any space with natural light, making any room feel bigger, brighter, and better.
And natural light is always enhanced by fresh air. Velux skylights open to let in fresh air from above, and built-in rain sensors close at the first sign of bad weather. The best part about skylights? You can add all the features of a window to your client's home without sacrificing privacy. Visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to find a Velux product that will add natural light to any space in your build.
Guys, NAHB, International Builders Show. We're going to be there February 25th through the 27th in Las Vegas. It's the biggest event for residential construction. And we have 50 free Expo passes available, one per registration. First come, first serve. Don't wait. So head over to builders, that's plural, show.com/modern craftsman. Grab your free pass and join us this year or next year, I suppose, at the International Builders Show. Hope to see you there. Hold on. You just told me your dog threw up as you took the mic cover off, so I'm guessing those have nothing to do with each other.
No, the mic cover is not. So I was telling you offline before we got on the podcast that my wife is currently in Vietnam. So her company got acquired. The company she worked for got acquired. So she has a new boss, and she's way busier than she's been probably in a couple of years. And she hadn't been traveling much again. And then all of a sudden she's like, I have to go to Vietnam right before Christmas. And the girls are older now. It's definitely way easier than when she would travel when she was younger or when they were younger. But obviously there's other challenges with them and extracurriculars and all that stuff. So I'm like finally getting in bed, sleeping, and you just hear that like dog sound, and I'm like, no. And for some reason they only throw up on carpet. Like we don't.
Oh yeah,
our entire house is hardwood and
where's the carpet?
Tile. Yeah, they just find like a runner and just throw up on the runner, and I'm like,
or they do it like right on the edge.
Yeah, and so Gus throws up, and then I'm like, I don't feel like getting up to clean that. And then I hear him like licking, and I'm realizing that he's eating it. And I'm like, all right, I got to go clean this up.
We've never even talked about the fact that you named your dog the same as my dog.
I know. I don't think I realized that either.
There's no way.
I honestly, like when obviously we had Polly and then we got the puppy, and I think that the girls wanted to name him Augustus. And we were like, oh yeah, we can call him Gus for short. And then it wasn't until like well after that I remembered that your dog.
I remember you
Gus.
telling me, and I thought you were joking. And then it was out of my mind. And I remember Meg was like, Nick, did Tyler get a dog and name it Gus? I was like, oh yeah. She goes, that's fucking weird. I'm like, yeah, that is kind of weird. Like, whatever.
Yeah. So I don't even remember how I think it was the girls ultimately made the decision, but I think that the name was he was like, I don't know why Augustus was what and then I think we were going to name him, like call him Augie. And the girls just decided that like he was going to go by Gus.
Oh yeah. So my dog is Guster.
Oh yeah.
Gus. He came with his name Gus, and then we were like, let's expand on it because, well, Penny was Penny Lane, and then we had Gus. And we were like, we got to do Guster.
Yeah, he's Rachel's dog anyway. He's just very needy.
My Gus is getting old. He's like he's like an old man now.
I started brushing my dog's teeth recently. Just Polly. Gus won't let me. He's like he's a P word. And he's just like very submissive, very needy. He's just like afraid of his own shadow. So I can't go near him. But I started brushing Polly's teeth. I was like, your breath smells terrible. And I'm pretty sure she just does it so she can eat the toothpaste.
Nice. Do you use regular toothpaste?
Nah, there's like dog toothpaste.
Yeah, okay.
And she's 5 at this point. I've literally never done it until like this week. And I did it once and I'm like, oh, Rach, it smells so much better. And then I forgot to do it for a day. And I was like, your breath is still terrible.
Yeah. It's like, you have to do it every day. It's like they eat the same food. So they always smell the same. Gus just smells like, the other day I was like, whoa, he stinks. And Meg's like, he literally smells like he's dying.
Yeah.
Like he's just old man, like dog.
It's like rotten garbage.
Yeah. Or just poop.
Yeah. So that was my night. And like I said, Rachel being away, it's easier in some ways, but it is also harder in a lot of other ways.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a lot going on.
I think we've talked about this before, but like I feel the kids are just better behaved. They don't play. They don't play the parents, right? Meg was away a couple weeks ago, and I had taken, I think it was Thursday and Friday, or maybe even Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off from work, and then the weekend, and then she came home Sunday. And I was like, the kids, they listen, they go to bed, they take a shower. It's like, it's not this constant fight.
Yeah.
Um,
We're also getting to the age of like physical abuse too. So the fighting doesn't last quite as long because it's usually somebody crying.
Yeah.
Also good and bad.
The constant crying at like when they're 8 and under or 10 and under, whatever. It's just like the other day I was in the kitchen and all 4 of them were crying. And I'm like, look at me. I'm like, no. It's just funny. It's like this, like I've always thought that I have a very high tolerance. Like I'm very patient.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes I crack and I snap, but generally speaking, like in a high stress environment, including like 4 children crying all at the same time, I remain pretty calm. Like I just, or I internalize a lot of it. But recently, one of the dads, I was talking about something, and he had commented, and he was like, because I was actually complaining about something, and he goes, Nick, you don't ever complain about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know. And he goes, I've always felt as though you're really patient, like when the world is literally melting around you. And I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, I think I've hit my threshold, and for the first time, I just felt like bitching about it today. So
there.
You're gonna be the guy.
I could be stressed about it. I mean, I feel like I don't deal with stress and anxiety that well, just because it feels like it's all the time. But if I am stressed and the kids are just like annoying or complaining, I cannot handle it. I'm like, you guys, you need to knock it off right now before I lose my cool, because right now I don't need you bickering and just throwing emotional bombs at each other, just trying to screw with each other. I don't even mind if they're fighting about something serious or it's legit. That's one thing, but like when somebody goes to use something and the other one picks it up and says, "Oh no, you can't use that. It's mine." And I'm like, I literally paid for everything that you have in your whole life. That is not yours, and you only picked it up because of your sister. Like, I can't handle that crap.
Yeah, and it's like you try to teach them a lesson, but then they're like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense."
It's so annoying. Yeah, so it's been interesting. We're also doing Elf on a Shelf for the first time this year for Tilly. So that's been consuming a lot of my mornings.
I got to the office this morning for a 7 a.m. meeting, and my phone, I look at my phone and I have a reminder set at 5 a.m. to move it. And I forgot. And I was like, oh my God, it's 7 o'clock. Like there's a chance Reed is awake and he will be devastated.
Yeah.
And I threw my bag down. I ran to my truck and I drove back home. And I like snuck in the house and the TV was off, which means Reed's not up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, grab the elves, set them up, and write the letter. And I'm back out. And I was like, dude, like, because I remember we forgot one day last year, and then Meg was like, "What do we do?" I'm like, "Just move them when they're not looking."
Yeah.
and she did it.
So stressful.
And the kids are like, "What the hell? They just moved." I love the magic for them. Like, I think it's so funny. And like Reed is, he's got all these like all this knowledge. He goes, I accidentally touched it, so I sprinkled it with cinnamon. So now the magic is back. So it should move tonight.
Dude, and I'm like, it's so stressful. I'm like doing it in the morning before she's awake, and I hear something, and I'm like stressed out that she's gonna come down. I'm like, I don't know. This is a lot. Rachel usually does that. I'm not gonna lie.
The other day when he did touch it and he put the cinnamon, I was like, oh, I should leave it there.
Yeah. Be done with it.
Like, it'd be like, you touched it. But I was like, no, because you know what's going to happen is I'll be at work and he'll be hysterically crying at home, and Meg will be like, what the fuck? Like, you just ruined this kid's day. But yeah, it's I know. Last year I got into it a couple times, and then I'm like, I can't, like every day, like why, like, you start seeing it on Instagram and people like go all out, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun. And then you do it and it's like, That was fun for a day. I'm not doing
Yeah.
this for 20 days.
My whole feed's like slammed with it right now because I've been trying to
Yeah.
figure out what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
So next week, I guess when this comes out, what it'll be Monday. So next Tuesday we have our
Well, this
live.
Tuesday.
This Tuesday, yeah, I guess it's
Yeah.
this Tuesday. I'm talking in real time.
Mm.
Will be our live Q&A workshop for business marketing and lead generation.
Yeah.
So we have a new course coming out. So the catalyst for that course, I realized recently, I went to present at Andersen, and it was for a bunch of their certified contractors. And one of the questions that I got asked a handful of times, and even from people from Andersen, basically explaining how important it is for their certified contractors to be able to generate not only more leads, but higher quality leads. And I guess the way that I grew my business over so many years has been so organic, and that is something that I struggled with for a long time. And I don't know if I necessarily put a plan in place to get to where I was. I think that I was always working towards a goal, but I didn't actually analyze my marketing, my branding, and my lead generation to like reach a certain point or for specific reasons other than I just wanted to be doing better work and working for different clients. But there wasn't like a ton of strategy to it. It
Yeah.
was just trial and error, looking to work my way up slowly. And I think that there are ways that that can be done way more efficiently, with systems, with knowledge, with tools. So that was the idea and the goal for me with this course, is to basically take what took me 15 years and condense and distill that into a course that will give you these strategies, and also the ability to take action and work on this aspect of your business, basically to rid yourself of 10 years of banging your head against the wall.
I want to share something which I didn't think I'd share. A couple weeks ago, when we started working on this, um, we had two projects that were in pre-construction, and they were like we were 15 to 18 months into pre-construction with both of them, and ultimately, and we were actually under contract to start construction on one of them, and they both essentially evaporated overnight. They canceled the one project that was going to be under
Within like
construction.
a week of each other.
Yes, and they were substantial projects, to the tune of like close to $10 million, and they were both subject to start construction within 30 days of that happening. So the reason I'm telling you this is because, number one, like, thank God we had a pre-construction agreement in place and we were being paid for that service. But, I made a huge mistake, during those projects. They, a lot of I constantly get asked anytime I'm talking about this, is like, well, why'd they cancel? Do you think it's the economy? Do you think it's no? It's a number of things. They were very specific to the project. One of them will ultimately end up moving forward with a project with us in the future. It just didn't play out the way that they had hoped, for stuff that I could say was outside of our control, but I would take responsibility on that. And the other one, I think we just misunderstood the client, and I think we were trying to sell a service to a client that was not what we would consider to be our ideal client. But this is all happening simultaneously to us building this course. And I got home one day, and my wife, who is just a very direct and honest human being, was like, "Can I ask you a question without you getting mad?" And I'm like, "Love that. Yeah, go for it."
That's a low. There's no, you can't win.
And she's like, "Do you feel like a fraud right now?" I was like, "What?" She goes, "Well, do you feel like a fraud that you're like helping, other contractors with their business when, your business is not in good place right now?" And I'm saying that out loud now for the first time, realizing like how brutal of a question that is.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks.
and yeah, exactly. But I was like, well, no. I said, actually, I think the complete opposite. The purpose of what we do with the podcast and all of these conversations is to tell the ugly side and how we're making our way through it. And frankly, my business is, at the time in a difficult spot because of one key mistake I made, which was completely avoidable and something I knew. I just chose not to. I chose not to do, and that was the end of the conversation with her. But what I realized in that scenario is that I was putting all of my effort into basically getting those two projects to move forward. I was, in one client, I was focused on convincing them to move forward in construction, sell, get that, like, and spending all of my effort to get those up and going because they were they were just challenging projects through pre-construction from design, but we also permitted. They were two of the most challenging permitted projects that I've ever been part of. Like, the entire team that was involved was like, this is insane. And we were successful at that, but I put all of my effort into that, and I had taken all of my effort off the gas when it came to lead generation. And because we had basically this pipeline of work that was taking us for the next 18 to 24 months. And when both of those projects went away, we're in this position where it's like, holy shit, we don't have any additional lead flow right now. There's nothing to fill in. And that I know a lot of people relate to that. And that's a super frustrating thing. And, in the moment, it's like, how are we going to survive this? Like, what are we going to do? Like, you go into kind of triage mode, but the reality is like, well, this is the whole point in lead generation and marketing. It's something that I can say easily now when, I wasn't doing it myself, but like, it's not something you shut off. It's something that you're consistently doing. And I look back, and that's my biggest regret, is that I had kind of taken my foot off the gas because I was focused on really getting those projects going so my team had the opportunity to really be successful with the construction, when the reality is they had what they needed. They could have moved through construction without my, I'll call it overwhelming support. And I should have been focused on the marketing side. So fast forward, sitting down with my team, sitting down with my coach, and just chatting through, like, all right, this is the situation we're in. We're playing triage. Like, we need to divide and conquer and make sure that we're kind of reacting to this in the most appropriate way without just blowing shit up and making a mess. And it really came down to, hey, my role, Nick, like, you need to focus on sales and marketing. And what does that look like? How is that different than what we've been doing? We've grown very organically over the last decade. And, do I need to take a more intentional approach? And that's where, that's everything we're teaching in that, where it's, this is kind of a live action lesson where it's, as Tyler said, it's, the last 10 years or so of what we've done, but also, the last 6 months of what I've done and immediately seen results with. And for us, for me, my focus has been refining our message and learning from said client that ultimately wasn't probably our ideal client, as, that's lesson one. Like, you don't only have to work with your ideal client, but you should be marketing towards your ideal client. And, so there's a key lesson that we talk about, and it's, it's not the ideal project, it's the ideal client. And for me, I'm thankful that I have the team that I have, because I am someone that gets very attached to a project where it's like, that's cool. We can work with a difficult client or a poor client, but that's a cool project, and we can pull this off. When it never works to our benefit. I've shared a project we did during COVID that will never see the light of day from a marketing perspective because we're not allowed to share it. And it was a nightmare. And the client was, not a nice person. And it was just, but it was a cool project that I chased down and was like, oh, we can make this awesome. And it worked completely against us.
Yeah. Obviously I was alongside of you throughout that period of time. Not that it's gone, and you've come out of it on the other side, but seeing what can be done, what you need to change, and like you said, I think that one of the really important takeaways is not letting your foot off the gas and ensuring that you're always maintaining some sort of focus on marketing and lead generation rather than the all the other aspects of business, right? And I think that that's even more important for smaller guys like me, where they're wearing so many different hats and they don't have a team in place where it's like, yeah, if I'm on the tools and I'm doing everything associated with, running a job, working on the job, securing materials, ordering, all the project coordination, correspondence with clients, like when am I spending time on marketing myself? And luckily for me, early when I really was looking to establish my business, I had a stronghold on like a pretty good marketing through Instagram. And then obviously what we were doing with the podcast, writing for magazines, just legitimizing my business. But if I didn't have that every day where I could just go on and I could use that as a marketing tool for myself every single day at that point in my career while I was looking to build my network and my lead generation, and really just create better brand awareness and brand identity, I don't know what I would have done because I wouldn't have had time to step back and sort all of that out on my own. Instagram was a really easy way to do that for me. But obviously that has a shelf life. Like Instagram now is not the only place that you need to be focusing your energy. There's so much more to it, and the game has changed. And that's what we are going to dig into.
The skip. Sorry.
No, just I think that things have changed, and I realized I came into the industry with like the good old boys mentality where, you have a handful of people in your network, you build a really great client base through doing great work and relying on word of mouth and referrals, and then that like your work's going to sell itself. The client interaction's going to sell, and that's all that you had and that's all that you needed. And have a nice truck, have it be lettered, be present. And I thought that was enough, and it was enough for a long time. But then I realized that like that's not enough to sustain a larger volume of work or just to get to the next level. So I was relying primarily for a long time just on those offline lead generation strategies. But the world has changed. It's not the good old boy construction that it was 20 years ago. And you need to be online. You need to be using strategies. You need to be using social. You need to be using your website, email marketing, all of those things to build like a extremely dynamic and robust lead generation and marketing program in order to really substantiate the amount of work and the type of jobs that you need for your business.
I think a big thing to pay attention to is the fact that, the reason Tyler says is things change, or one of the reasons is because you change and you go after different projects and different clients, and you're chasing different opportunities. So the landscape changes in terms of marketing, but you're also doing one job and then realizing you want to do that one again, or do a better one, or you want to grow your business and hire. And now you have to do two of those. So your lead flow needs to increase. Like that's the change we're talking about. And there's, it's all the medium, all the media that you need to be part of. We're investing in print media. 2 years ago, I would have told you I will never advertise in a magazine. And here I am advertising in a magazine and personally working on the creative every quarter. And it's really just that those multiple touch points, the consistency behind the marketing. I think this is why they talk about social media, and like, the growth to social media is being consistent, posting every day, right? It's the same thing with marketing. Like, you should be reminding people what you do every day. And I'll relate this to, something that we all can probably relate to, which is, a pair of gym shorts that you see advertised on Instagram, a coffee maker that you see advertised on Instagram. Like, I just bought a cold brew machine for the office that I looked up once months ago. And every day since then, every time I've logged into Instagram, there's the ad. And twice now I've went through the process. I put it in my cart. I see the total. I'm like, that's a lot of money. And then I don't buy it. And then I get the ad the next day. I'm like, should I have bought it? And then the next day it's like, all right. And then I go through the situation again. Third time I bought it. I was like, you know what? Screw it. $700 for a cold brew machine. I spend $1,800 a year or something like that in cold brew. If I buy it at Starbucks, it's going to save me money. And but it's the consistency. And in talking to some of you guys, I've gotten some feedback where it's like, yeah, but then you're just annoying, and you're constantly promote, like, basically selling. You guys could say the same thing about the, what we do with the courses. It's like, we're not doing it to be annoying. We're doing it because we want you guys to know what we're offering, and that we're putting together this stuff for the sake of helping. It's the same reason that you're advertising. You're trying to help someone build a house. Because if you're not the guy advertising, they're going to hire the other guy. And then when you see who they hire, you're like, oh, God, that guy's a jackass. Like, he's going to build, that's going to be a shitty house. I should have done it. And then you're upset that they didn't hire you, but they didn't know you. And, at the core, like at the simplest version of this, one of the things that I'm trying to implement better is just calling a past client and be like, and just seeing how they're doing. It's not just like, hey, do you have anyone that wants to build, but keeping that relationship, going. And then, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the generic name, right? The one we've all built for. I would love to, I'd love to know if you know anyone that might be interested in doing a renovation or build. You guys were such a great client. We'd love to work with more clients like you. And, I figured you'd be the best person to ask, because that client, I've been in the position where it's like, oh, I didn't know you were looking for more work. I do know people. I thought you were so busy that you couldn't address these people. And I was confused by that comment at first, but then realized it's like, well, no, we post so much and share so much on social media that people have this predetermined understanding of who we are and what we do and what our capacity is. When it's like, you're not always telling the whole story, and you might want to open up the opportunity to other projects. There's projects that we're doing, that we're under construction with right now, that have never seen social media and might never see social media. And those are type of projects that aren't, like, some of them aren't even what we would consider our ideal project, but they generate revenue. They're a good opportunity. We can execute them. We're delivering a great product for that client. But how would we get that job if no one ever knows that we're offering that? And sometimes that marketing has to be more direct and consistent, and constantly top of mind. I think that's what all of the marketing is really centered around, is how do you remain top of mind when someone thinks about building or renovating? They don't think about, all right, who, like, let's start the process of figuring out who we want to work with. It's like, oh no, I want to work with TRG. Like, I know they're in my area, and I know that they do what I'm looking for.
It's also difficult because along the same line of what you were saying before, like, not only is it difficult to find the time to stop the work or to step back and figure out what your marketing plan looks like, what your lead generation strategy needs to look like. Like, when you're busy, you're not worried about that. But then when you slow down, and now you have time to. A lot of times you're in like such a panic that you're not making the right decisions, and you're not, like, all you're worried about is landing work and landing jobs to basically try and buy down your overhead, where you should have had systems in place that were always working on the ideal type of project, the ideal type of lead, rather than, hey, I was busy, I didn't have time for it, things were good, the economy was great, now I've slowed down, now I'm like, it's feast or famine, I'm just spinning my wheels trying to do anything and everything. um, so it's so important while you're busy and while you're working and while things are going well to understand, like, where do you want to be, even if you're busy and jobs are taking place and maybe they aren't perfect, you want to be somewhere else. Like, you need to be able to put somebody in place or step back and say, hey, this is where I am, analyze that, market that, figure out, or analyze that, gauge what that's doing for you, your numbers, your bottom line, your business. And then if I make a change, if I market towards another type of project, towards another type of client, one, how do I do that? And then how does that change my business, to see if that makes sense? And I think that what most people struggle with, and what we want to help with throughout this, is that it doesn't need to be so overwhelming. It doesn't need to be done when work dries up. This is something that you can work on consistently, a little at a time. If you want to get it all done in a week and say, okay, I'm done, I washed my hands of it, I completed the course, you know, we're good to go. That's not the way that it works, right? We are giving you information that can be put in place immediately, but also a long-term plan of what you need to work on consistently while you're busy, while you're doing the work that you've been doing to get to where you want to be. And I think that that's probably what I struggle with the most, and what most guys and girls struggle with. It's like, I don't even, like, I know where I want to be, but how do I get there while everything else is going on around me? And a lot of times it's not until, hey, I just lost 2 jobs and I don't have anything on my plate, and now I need to figure this out. Where, like you said, if you had been more proactive throughout the past 18 months, you could continue to generate the leads and market yourself towards where you want to be. And even if you're saying no to clients, at least there's work on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
You're continuing to build your strategy. And I think that having a system in place that allows you to continue to refine that and use everything that you're doing right now in your business to land jobs 18 months down the road.
Because that's the goal. Like,
Yeah.
that's what.
And I think what we're normally doing is, like, you're finishing a job and then you're using that to try and build on or market you to where you want to be, where it's like, you should be focusing on that job and pulling what you can from that job and generating it for your next job while that's happening,
Mhm.
rather than waiting it for it to finish. Now we're going to get professional photos. Like, create the story, create the marketing, create the branding during the project. Pull what you have to out of it to feed the next project. Don't wait until it's done and then, all right, let's assess where we are. Let's see what worked, what didn't work, and now let's try and put together a strategy for the next job, which at this point is going to be 2 years down the road. And I know that's something that I struggle with a lot. It was almost like, life and business is so chaotic. I'm trying to keep my head above water in the now. How can I account for 12 months down the road, 18 months down the road? Um, and I think that most people probably struggle with that.
Yeah, it's just this ongoing. It's building momentum, and I think that for us and for me right now, it's like, all right, I need to get that momentum back up to the speed that we were at. Right, like that's the hardest lift, is getting all the process in place where it's like you are now, in motion, and now it's a matter of like bringing that, landing the plane, right? Like getting a deal in and then landing it. And you know I've talked about this before. But I think that a lot of the conversations I have when I'm talking one-on-one with you guys is how do I network with architects or builders? I mean, I'm sorry, architects or designers or real estate agents. Like, how do I get in touch with them? I shared, I think it's not on our website. We should get it up there, but there is, I share on my story pretty often. I have a template for when I reach out to a new architect that I want to connect with, and it's an email template on how I'm introducing myself and essentially landing that first meeting. But that's where, like, that is typically the easiest thing to do, is get that first meeting. But what happens after that? Because going to get coffee and talking about how great you are and hearing how great they are and how you guys should work together, like, the conversation ends the same exact way every time. You have coffee, you talk, you share about your experience, they share about theirs, they talk about projects they're working on, you're talking about projects you're working on. There's a little bit of silence for a minute, and then it's okay, well, we should definitely find a project to work on. I'll keep you in mind. Oh, yeah, I'll do the same. Yeah, it would be great. Like, it seems like it would be a great fit. Yeah, it was so nice to meet you. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally like how every conversation happens. But what happens after? Like, where's the follow-up? Where's the continuing conversation? How are you building rapport with them when you've never done a job? And that template shares a lot of that. And we get more specific with it in obviously the full course and the full conversation. And we could talk about this on the Q&A this week. But, for me, that is where I saw the biggest opportunity that we can make a change where, okay, I've met with all of these architects and designers. I've seen them at the events. I've gotten coffee. I've done lunch. I've come to their office. Why don't I show them what we do? I have a good project that I can show people what we got going on. And frankly, it's in a good stage where you can see the complexity of what it's taking to build it, and I can talk through it. So I've basically toured at least 2 people per week for the last 2 months through our active projects. And these are architects and designers. Some are even other developers or people within the industry that I feel as though would be a mutually beneficial. And in the short 2 months, it's led to a handful of opportunities that we have. And some of them are really big opportunities where they were architects that were interested in working with us. We had been at their office. Yeah, that sounds good. Had the same conversation. Yeah, we should find an opportunity. And before I left that meeting, I was like, hey, why don't you come look at one of our jobs? See it firsthand. It's in a good spot. And they toured the job, and I'll never forget. We walked out to the driveway. We're sitting there, and he took a deep breath and he goes, "Thanks for doing this. This is very impressive. And now I understand what you guys really do and how you guys execute. And hearing you explain it made it evident that you really give a shit about about the craftsmanship and what it takes to do a good job." And looked at his colleague and said, "Hey, send him that job that we're looking at right, this afternoon." And they sent us a job, and now we're in pricing with it.
The good thing about this, and a lot of what we use to market ourselves also, and what people have asked us, it's like, are you able to do a lot of this on a limited budget? And you absolutely are. Like, what you just didn't cost any money. It did cost some time, but you're using a project that's in construction that realistically, like, if it were a customer project, somebody would be paying for to market yourself, to create more work for yourself. And I think that that's what's been good, and what our insight offers is that, we did bootstrap our businesses. We did and we continue to bootstrap everything that we're doing. We've never borrowed money to create the podcast, like to build our businesses. We didn't take out a loan and dump a bunch of money into it. It's all been self-funded. We conceded a lot of money to be able to reinvest back into what we're doing. And it's not as though, hey, we borrowed $1 million to market for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to take from what we had and use what we were doing to create the marketing efforts for our business. So you don't need, all of this can be done on a limited budget, depending on how much you want to do for yourself, depending on how involved you want to get. It's not as though in order to build a marketing plan and a better lead generation that you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or even tens of $1,000s a year. There's ways that you can do this and systems for doing this, which you can do it with very little financial investment and just some sweat equity on your own, which I think is also really important for a lot of people. We're not going to say, hey, like, first off, sign up for the course. You need to go hire a graphic designer. You need to hire a web designer. Like, there's options for all of this where you can bootstrap this and get your marketing efforts and your branding off the ground without hiring anyone. I don't think that that's necessarily the best way 100%. I think that there's definitely a time and a place to bring people in to help you, especially as you get bigger and your business becomes more complex and your client avatar gets a little bit more complicated. But during the beginning, like, there's so many things that you can do that don't cost you money and they can be integrated into your daily workflow. I mean, that's the whole thing that I did with Instagram for 10 years with my business was, hey, everything that I did for business was essentially to create my brand and my identity and my ethos for my business and then market that to get jobs that were even more aligned with what I wanted to be doing. So yeah, I would do the work to be able to document the work, to be able to then market towards where I wanted to be. And I think that there's still an option for a lot of people to do that, which is really important. I don't want to see people putting themselves under because they're spending so much money on marketing and they don't have the
Right.
volume to support that right now.
Yeah, it's not that. It's very much just putting the effort into telling people what you do.
Yeah.
And I think, even for me, for a long time, the more I started dipping myself into different markets and different networks, and when I was introducing myself, for a long time, I would be amongst peers. I'd be at the JLC show and all of these, all of these industry events. And when it's, people would be like, "Oh, you're NS Builders," and it was like they knew. And then I go to a networking event or an architect event, and they're like, "So who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, my name's Nick Schiffer with NS Builders." They're like, "Oh, cool. Where are you based out of?" It's like, this guy has no idea who we are.
Yeah.
And do you know how many followers I have? But that's not the case. It's like that. That's not where they're spending their time. That's not where they're networking. That's not where they're making introductions. And that's where, like, that was really a couple years ago where it's, oh wow, like this is really about explaining to multiple audiences who you are and what you do and how you're constantly reestablishing that. It's, I think Instagram is like, yes, it is a very powerful tool. I built a lot of business off it, but as my business has evolved, it's it's not something I will ever give up or not do. It's just, it's not the only path to building the amount of quality leads that it takes to run this business.
It's also, I've been thinking a lot about what we're doing, the conversations that we're having in the podcast and where it can go and everything else. Obviously, wrapping up the year, that's typically what I do. Just analyze what we did over the year and what our goals were and if we met them and where we need to change and adapt. And I've realized that, like, so much of what we're doing, so much of my knowledge base, so much of what I'm speaking to has been taught to me or brought to me by other people we've had conversations with, people that we've been exposed to within the industry because of partnerships that we have, mutual acquaintances. And I've realized, like, I had a conversation with a guy at the Kukin Brothers show, and he's like, "I see that you're doing a ton of teaching now. You've always been doing that on the podcast, like you're doing consulting. Like, do you ever feel, it's the same thing that Meg asked you, where it's like, do you feel that you are like a fraud for this because you don't have formal education in
Mhm.
teaching? And I'm like, no, because like, who has access to more information than we do right now? And it's the amount of people that we've spoken to, the guests we've had on the podcast, the people within our professional network. Not that we know everything, but we have built a community of people that allows us to tap into so much knowledge and so much experience. We're not creating all of this media and creating all of this content in a vacuum. Like, we have access to hundreds of thousands of people, and we've had conversations with thousands of people that have shown and taught me so much over the past 15 years. And everything that I do on a daily basis brings that with me. It brings that experience with
Right.
me. It brings that knowledge with me. Um, and like, absolutely not. If it's not me doing this, not that I'm saying that I'm the best option for this, but like, who else is positioning themselves? There's a handful of people that have positioned themselves and put themselves out there
Mhm.
and like publicly had this many conversations with people within our industry, where it's like, why not us? Why not, the people that are involved with us? Why not our network of people that we tap into on a daily basis? Like, the people that we speak to and the people within our network and that we have partnerships with and everything else are the absolute best of the best in what
Right.
they do. And we're bringing so much of that expertise and knowledge and experience with us that, like, it's not just me. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not, I'm not coming up with all of this information on my own. So much of this is based on the experience of people that we've had in our lives and in our business.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Like, this goes hand in hand with our thought, and what we've always said is, the whole intent here is that as we learn, we teach. And I've always had an issue or struggled with the learning from someone that has done it, that has completed it, because it seems so far away when you're sitting down with someone that has built a business over the course of the last 40 years and has now successfully retired. It's, I feel those guys bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and know-how and advice, no doubt. But there is this kind of it is this glossed over version sometimes, because 40 years, you're going to forget stuff, you're going to ignore the bad stuff, you're going to focus on what worked and maybe the critical things that didn't work. But the guy that's you know the guy that's a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of me and has been where I am, years before, that seems more relatable. I'm like, oh, wait, you were doing what I was doing 5 years ago. Okay, so can we talk about the last 5 years and what you've implemented? And I when I talk to someone, it's like I look at someone and we might be equal, but there's something I do better, or they're a year they're doing what I was doing a year ago, and I can help provide advice. So exactly what Tyler said. It's like, why not us? Why not, two of us in different positions in our career, in our business, and here's an opportunity for us to share as much as we can as we're actively learning it, and most importantly, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, implementing it. Where it's I'm seeing what's working and I'm immediately turning around and saying, Tyler, this is working. Like, or hey, I tried that doesn't work, or it's too complicated. Like, as we're going, like, we're putting together so much information, and it's, we were talking about something offline yesterday. I'm like, hey, that looks like a lot of information. Do you think it's put together in a way that, anyone could understand it? And you're like, oh yeah, I rewrote it to make sure that anything that was not common knowledge or standard for, a builder or a contractor to have known prior, that I've basically communicated how, or rewrote it in a way that you, Tyler, was communicating it for the first time?
It's so when I first went into business for myself and I felt as though everything was new and I didn't know what I was doing and I was just voraciously learning, I can recall just not nonstop being completely immersed in everything that I was doing, where it was just so intense.
Mhm.
Everything that I was doing, I wanted to figure out. I wanted to figure out why I was doing it. I want to make sure I was doing it the right way. I didn't want to put myself out there if it wasn't the right way. And I can recall the intensity in which that came. Um, and I'm not that it went away, but I feel I got to a point with the carpentry and the hands on aspect of my career that even things I was uncertain of how to do, I had enough confidence in myself that I would be able to figure them out. And I didn't have the same amount of fire and intensity, right? It was like, hey, if I didn't get this done at 5 and I didn't figure it out, I'll figure it out tomorrow. In my 20s, there's no way I would have stayed for 3 days straight without sleep to figure it
Mhm.
out. And looking to create more content and educate and really bring more value to this podcast, I feel I'm back at the point where I'm relearning for the sake of teaching, right? Where it's like, I know how to do these things. I know how I figured this out in my head, but it's been so long that I need to find a way to teach that or articulate that in a way that everyone else will understand. And it can't just be this knowledge that's in my head. And like I was talking to you about offline, where you said, like, that's the same way that I work. That's what I'm doing for coursework and podcasts right now, where it's like, I want to create this document. And I
Mhm.
begin creating that document. And then while I'm creating that document, I'm like, well, I need to explain this.
Right.
So then I'm on to the next thing. And then I'm just building out that because I'm like, I need to make sure that everyone understands how to do this component of that. And then while I'm explaining that, there's another aspect of that that I'm like, oh, people could really find that valuable. And I need to be able to articulate that. So now I'm like, I sat down to create one document to help people. And that's basically grown and birthed into 4 different documents with like all of this really extremely important, comprehensive information where I'm like, I don't want to stop. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all over the place. I have a million screens open. I have like, I'm creating graphics for them. I'm looking up more information. I'm putting formulas in. And it's like all stuff that I've just done with business for so long, but I've never had to teach it. I've never had to explain it to somebody. And I've figured it out over 15 years. I'm like, how can I have 15 years worth of information that I could put on a piece of paper and teach somebody in 10 minutes? And that creates this like intensity and fury within
Yeah.
me that it's like the fucking Tasmanian devil went off on my computer and then I finish and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And it's all on one piece of paper. But I'm like, that just took like 30 pages of notes and
Mhm.
like 15 hours of my time to distill that down in a way that makes sense and is cohesive and succinct for these people to take and then use.
Well, I think there's two reactions happening right now. Anyone that's listening, it's like, hey, Tyler, that's ADD. And the other side is like, Tyler, that's an SOP. And it's the hardest thing that we try to implement, these standard operating procedures within our business. And what the biggest benefit for me personally and doing this and sharing it is it's forcing me to do it in a way that has to be presentable.
Oh yeah.
We For years I've had, like, if I open my Google Docs folder, it's worse than the 30 pages of notes. It's literally like a one page here, one page there. Wait, I'm going to duplicate this and add more stuff here. And it's just notes of like, this is how I want to do something, or this is what I should be doing. And now it's okay, take that and summarize it, but make it presentable, and not just presentable for the dozen people that work for me, but presentable for, we'll just say, thousands of people that might see this.
Yeah.
And
It's
because if it's not presentable, it's going to be like, ha 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 ha, this is shit.
yeah. It's
And but and sorry. And the last point is like, while doing that, like you said, you're putting it all together and then being like, wait a second, I should add this,
Yeah.
or I should clarify this. I just went through this yesterday. Like we were talking, we internally, we have committed like, all right, once a month we're sitting down, we're adding SOPs. And I was like, hey, when I have one, do I just add it to the document? And everyone's like, absolutely not, Nick. Like send me your idea and we'll clean it up and we'll put it in the doc. And I was like, okay, where am I putting that? Like, what's the SOP on when I have an SOP? And it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous because it's like, oh, we don't need to be told every single thing we do. But you do. And this is what offers you the ability to scale. And my last point on that is we're going through end of year reviews and we're sitting down with some of the team. And one of the things that came up with one of my guys is I was like, hey, I get why you're going through this particular process in this particular way. Like it makes sense because that job doesn't necessarily call for us to handle it our typical NS Builders way. That I want that to stop today, because what we need to do is we need to treat every single project, regardless of how it's set up or managed, one way. Like we are committing to it because that sets the precedence for the entire team. And when we hire someone and they're overseeing you, it's difficult to say, well, this is a not typical job, so don't pay attention to the way I do it. And instead, it's like, no, we have our way of doing it. We've set that standard and we operate that way. And as we grow, we continue to grow in the right direction. And as we hire, we get people to understand our process by watching others do it. And that is ultimately what gives you the scalability of being able to, kind of hand over hey, this is how you do that, and not have to explain the same thing over and over because it's a different person.
The SOPs for SOPs is good. I had Tilly in the bath last night and she was telling me jokes that she read from a book, and one of them was like, if you clean the vacuum, are you then the vacuum cleaner? I was like, yeah, remind me the SOPs for SOPs. No, but even I was talking to you before this, where I sat down to create additional like supplemental documents for the paint products course that I put together. And I was like, I'm going to put something together for like how I go in and look at a project, if it were just a paint project, to price it. And then that turned into like, well, I'm going to tell people what my rate is for that. And then I'm like, I should explain to them like how to come up with that rate. Mm-hmm. So then it's like I have a document on how I'm calculating my billable rate. And then from the billable rate, it's like, well, now I should, at the end of the day, like I should give them a proposal to show them where that billable rate falls in there. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'll add a sample proposal to it. And then from there, I'm like, well, now I should show them like what my margins are on that based on everything. Mm-hmm. So then I create a separate document where it's like the full analytical breakdown of what this project looks like. And then I'm like, wow, that just went from 0 to 100 miles really fast. But then I'm looking through everything and I'm formatting it. And I'm like, even like you're saying right now, to be able to explain to people who are working for you, like for this example, I basically created a project where it's like, I'm going to have an employee go do this job. I'm not going to be on it. Yeah. And I take what I'm paying them and I show what my burden on top of that is. And then what my like generic labor markup is, what my markup on materials are, what's getting charged to the client, where all your, everything that makes up these numbers. And I'm like, this would be so perfect to show to somebody where it's like, hey, you're only paying me $27 an hour, but you're charging $65. Like, this is horse crap. You're making all the money. And to have this document where it's like, hey, I'm paying you $27 an hour and I'm charging 65 and I'm making like $300 on this entire project. To be able to show somebody like where all of that money goes and how it's not like I'm charging 65 and paying you 27 and pocketing the rest would be so useful and you don't feel as though you have to hide those numbers from your employees, right? Where it's like, my employees can't know what the market rate is that I'm charging for this, because then they're going to feel that I'm not getting paid. And it's like, well, if I'm transparent with my clients, why wouldn't I be transparent with the people who work for me to show like, yeah, on this entire job where you spent $20, I'm making 300 of that, which
Right.
like, to me, it winds up being super important. And now this information it's not just, you're not just using it for yourself, you're using it for your business. You're using it for your clients. You're understanding your numbers when your clients ask you, well, like, why is it so much per hour to hire somebody to come in here and do like some minor carpentry and paint? And it's well, here are all my numbers. This is where I'm coming up with this. And if they want to know like what you're pulling out of that job, you're confident in all of those numbers and what you're actually making and what your margins look like. And you can clearly explain how you aren't taking advantage of people. And I'll be honest, I would say that like 75% of contractors have no idea.
Yeah.
It's just, this is my number. This has always been my number and it seems to work out, but like, does it? So that's been really interesting for me to to dive back into stuff that I haven't really dove into for like 10 years. I basically started figuring it out when things weren't working in business, and then I didn't necessarily completely rebuild the wheel. I just changed the wheel
Yeah.
like appropriately to what I was doing, the type of projects I was doing, and each year how it needed to change, almost by just inflating that by a percentage or an additional markup to reflect whatever changes happened in my business. But I never went back 15 years later, 10 years later, and did like a full-fledged inventory on what that looks like. And it's just been super interesting to me. Like, I know that it works because it's my model is simple and it's not that convoluted. So it's relatively black and gray, but to go back and to inventory, engage, and analyze everything to know exactly why it works and exactly how much it works has been super interesting to me. And just very reinvigorating, where I'm like, oh damn, this is kind of fun. I haven't dug into this stuff in so long, and it has consumed a lot of my time, and it's enjoyable. Like, I haven't been working after work in a long time, and like, I'm at the point with this stuff that it's so exciting to me, and the potential to be able to help other people with this information and teach this in a very direct, efficient manner is like jacking me up so much that I'm like going to my kids' practice and bringing my computer with me while they're practicing to be like, I just want to keep working on this, like I
Yeah.
want to make this the best that it can be. And it's a challenge for me. And it's been fun, to be honest.
The ability to improve yourself while sharing that with everyone else to ultimately improve themselves, like, that was the premise behind everything we started this for. And now to put this in an actionable way is, I'm with you. We committed to doing this, and I selfishly love the fact that I'm improving my business at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know that we spoke with one of our, I would say, mentors for this,
Mhm.
and he was like, get the stuff out there.
Mhm.
It's never going to be where you want it, and then you will go back and you will refine and you will make things better, and everything that comes out will be continue to be better. And that's exactly how I felt. And like, I knew that he was right, but I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, I'm seeing what we put out and I'm seeing what the potential is, and without even really considering what's the next thing to come out, I'm moving back to like, how do I make what's already out better,
Mhm.
not only for the people who have invested, but for the people who will. Like, I feel there's a better return for not only our supporters, but for ourselves, to continue refining what we've done and adding to what we've done
Right.
than to just create something completely new.
Right.
And I think that we can afford that. So like, I'm super pumped for everyone also who's been a part of this from the get-go, because like I said, I just probably spent 2 days worth of time creating information that's going to go into a course that's already in existence for people who have purchased, but also like for future supporters, just to make that experience better and a more sound investment. And it's, to me, it's like a really long-term model, less short-sighted, which I think is tough a lot of times when you are beginning, starting any sort of new venture, because you're like, we just want to we want to get things rolling. Like, you want to get off the ground, you want to get the wheels in motion, and then all of a sudden you're like, nah, pump the brakes, we need to fix everything before we keep moving forward. And luckily, we've been in a position financially with the podcast and with our own businesses and lifestyles that we can do that. But I don't think that a lot of people have that opportunity until a ways down the road, because it's like, nah, that ship has sailed, we need to focus on the next thing.
Yeah.
And I'm at the, I'm of the mindset where it's like, now we need to continue to make what we're doing right now better as we're adding to this.
Right. Guys, if you want, if there's something that you'd like us to dig into, we have a running list going, but please email us at hello@moderncraftsman.co. Get something in our email. We're happy to dig into it. Like I said, we have a list of things that we are prioritizing, but if there's a overwhelming desire to learn something specific, then we are happy to dig into it and share what we've learned and share how we run particular parts of our business. And as always, we appreciate you guys listening and the support that you bring to the Modern Craftsman, and bigger picture, how you have continued to help us elevate our industry.
Yeah, we're in a bit of, I would say, just restructuring with the end of the year and trying to put goals in place for 2025. The website's a great place to find a lot of the information. The newsletter is even better. So you can sign up for that on the website. Also, what I've spent some time on is the Instagram page. So you can go on. We're still editing the link tree to get everything up on that. But even in the highlights, you can go on. There's a free highlight tab where you can go on and get all of our free downloads. There's a course page where you can go in and access any of our courses. There's a page for any sort of workshops or webinars that we're holding, which you can go in. There'll be a registration link to that. So that's another great place if you're looking to find out more information about anything that we're speaking about on the podcast, is to hit up our Instagram, which is Modern Craftsman Pod. So there's a ton of ways that you can get a hold of us. But we'll continue to update everything, so it's accessible basically on all platforms. But give us a little bit of time. There's a lot going on.
That being said, we'll talk to you guys next week, right before Christmas.